As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Laura Doehle. Laura founded Elevation Business Consulting to help small business owners gain calm, clarity, and confidence in running their business. She guides owners in understanding what is causing them to feel overwhelmed or unsure how to move to the next level, creates a plan to move the business forward, and holds the business owner accountable to achieve their goals. She has spent decades helping organizations achieve goals that require change across all functions. She brings a take-action approach and helps business owners create structures, processes, and tools to run their business in the way that feels right for them and allows them to make progress on their professional and personal goals. Laura leverages her passion for helping businesses achieve their goals through her involvement in community organizations. She is on the board of Women Business Owners and Art Fund, serves as a mentor to early stage organizations through Life Science Washington Institute's WIN program, and supports the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship as an application essay reviewer. When she's not busy with these organizations, you'll find her hiking, skiing, biking, enjoying music, or watching sports with her partner, kid, and 2 dogs. In today's conversation, Laura and I are talking all about how to really gain time back in your business. We are talking about how to transition so you can work on your business because you delegate the right things. We are talking about how to hold people accountable. And so that way, you know, you are having work done for you that you don't have to do. So this is very important. As business owners, we need to make sure that we are being business owners, that we are not just stuck in the weeds. And so we need to grow and support our teams to do so. So let's jump into the conversation and hear everything that Laura has to share about really trusting ourselves to delegate to our team so we can focus on what we want to focus on inside our business. Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. All right. Before we jump into today's conversation, can you take a little bit and introduce yourself?
With pleasure. I am the CEO and founder of Elevation Business Consulting, which is a firm focused on helping small business owners, typically in professional services, end the frantic firefighting of the day of being a business owner. And that, kind of everyone's like, how do you get there? And really, it started with having worked for a number of small businesses throughout my career in professional services, husband and wife team, multiple partners, solo entrepreneur, and seeing how putting systems and process and structures in place can alleviate that firefighting and generate success for the business. And that really drove me to realize I could help a lot of business owners do great things if they can actually breathe and have some calm in their day-to-day existence. So that's kind of my background. I take a take action approach to things. We got to get stuff done. We don't have time to sit around and pontificate. It's really about what is the action plan. And so I've been in this business for 5 years now. So it's fun. I love it.
Yes, that's great. So it reminded me of a conversation I had with a business owner. Oh gosh, it was years ago. So it was right around the time that I was starting my business. And at that point in time, I thought I was going to be doing kind of people and process. And then I realized, okay, I need to focus on one thing. So we're going to focus on the people and the hiring and all that stuff. But I remember having a conversation with the business owner and she goes, well, things are crazy in small businesses because we're small businesses. That's just the nature of it. And I was just like, well, no, that's just the nature of it because that's what we think it should be.
Mhm.
We can have processes, we can have systems, we can make things easier for us. We just don't think we're allowed that as a small business.
It's you hit the nail on the head. Isn't that the truth? And I think part of that is the challenge is so much is published about systems and process and structures in the journals and the papers that's all oriented towards the big business that has the resources to run large performance review process, that has the resources to have a massive in-house recruiting team. And so they assume that, well, if I don't have that massive in-house recruiting team, I have to do it in a frenetic way. I have to lose sleep or I have to burn the candle on both ends. And none of us went into business to be exhausted and burned out. We went into it for, the mission or the flexibility or the opportunity to be in charge of our own destiny. We did not go into it to have our hair on fire all day. And that's a big thing for me is there's small things you can do in your business to put the hair out and to have a sustainable personal life too, which is important in my opinion. But yeah, it is this misconception that because I'm a small business owner, I don't have the luxury of taking big vacations. I don't have the luxury of checking out. I don't have the luxury of a smooth process. And that's not true. You've just chosen not to put those in place. And I would contend that all businesses have processes, whether they're documented and consistently followed. That is the question. And that's typically where the kind of fighting fires happens is because we're not doing things in a consistent way on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you said so much there, Laura, that I just kind of want to like unpack is like, oh, like it resonates so much with me. It is one of those things, like obviously I help people hire and I'm always like, you gotta hire so you have those extra hands. It's one of those things like we didn't most of us didn't start a business because we wanted to work 70 hours a week. We started a business because of freedom. Like I especially know a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast and a lot of the people that I work with tend to be moms and we wanted to be more present in our children's life and we're like, oh, I can use my brain, I can use my expertise, I can run a business, and I can still be there for my kids. And then it turned into, oh, I can use my brain, I can use my expertise, I can be there for my kids, and then I don't sleep or I don't take any time for myself because who has
Mm-hmm.
time for that? And
Mm-hmm.
we are driving ourselves like into the ground with exhaustion all the time because once again, we think we have to. There's this whole hustle culture out there. It's like go, 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 do more, do more, do more. Or we think if we stop, and I am guilty of this, if I stop, I am leaving money on the table. Because that's always one of the things we hear. It's like, what money did you leave on the table because you didn't do that? And sometimes we have to say, it's okay to leave that money on the table because I matter. I matter. It's okay to leave money on the table because when I leave that money on the table, I am good enough and I am rested enough. Can be present enough to go get this other money that is going to more than make up for what I left on the table.
Mm-hmm. You're totally right on that. Is that there's a cost benefit analysis that has to be done, and like if I don't do that billable hour today, I'm leaving money on the table. But if I go to my kid's baseball game, I might actually sit next to my next future client. It's going to give me, 200 billable hours over the next 3 months. That baseball game may have paid off in spades. Also, your kid thinks you're the coolest person on the planet because you're at their baseball game. And I think that that's where you really have to think about like what are you actually getting out of some of this stuff that we do? And to your point, like it's We don't have to do it all. We didn't go into business. This is what I tell people. You went into business for what the business does, because that's what you're passionate about. You didn't go into business to run a business. I personally geek out on how businesses are run, which is why I'm in the business that I'm in, because I get to help people run businesses better. And you really have to figure out what that right balance is and know that there's always going to be a to-do list. You're not going to get to it all. And what's the point if we're not our best selves? You're not going to deliver the best work to your clients if you're exhausted because you haven't slept in days, or because you're feeling guilt or shame because you didn't make it to the event for your kid or didn't make it over to your niece's recital. Like, it doesn't have to just be around kids. And I think there is, and this is in corporate culture too, this whole concept, if you don't have kids, then you have plenty of time to work. But that's not true. We all have passions. We should all have passions of stuff we do outside of work. So it shouldn't have to be a 70-hour work week to be successful and fulfilled.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. Because I know there's um, sometimes when I'm talking to people and they're like, okay, I'm bringing in my first employee and this is like what I want. Cause I was like, okay, what do holidays look like? What does vacation time look like? What does all this stuff look like? And they're like, well, I'm okay with someone if they want to take time off to like go get their kids every day as long as they're putting in their hours. But like, but what if they don't have kids? And what if I build that into my policy or these things? I was just like, people have lives too. I'm like, I know a lot of small businesses that they close down between Christmas and New Year's. And part of that is they're like, well, my kids are home. I want to spend time with my kids. I don't need to take time with my clients. And I'm like, well, but I always ask them, I was like, why in particular that time? Because there's also other times, like as we're recording this, before we jumped on and pressed record, we were talking about spring break. We were talking about
Mhm.
some northern schools have a winter break in February. There's all this other time where kids are off, but sometimes it's that between Christmas and New Year's. And part of the reason why a lot of businesses do it is because work slows down. They can take that time off and not feel bad as stepping away. But if work is slow, why do you need your employee that doesn't have kids like working during that time and things like that? Can't they enjoy a week off without work? And it's like, so sometimes we build these things because of kids, but we also think humans, let's build it because we're humans. Let's build it
Yep.
because it's the end of the year and I don't care what holidays you celebrate. December is crazy with everything on the calendar. Why can't we give people a break? It shouldn't
Hmm.
be, well, you get a break because you have kids. All humans need a break. All humans
Yes.
need time to do whatever it is that they want to do.
Yes. And I felt that as a early in my career before I had kids, and I had a long time before I had kids, is the double standard that existed with those with kids and those that didn't. And it's just not right. I had dogs, so I'd always be like, sorry, I do need to go home because I got
Mhm.
to let the dogs out. They can't sit in a crate for the 12 hours you think I should work here.
Yeah.
But but yeah, it is, and I think this is one of the benefit of a small business. When you build it, you get to build it the way you want it to be. You get to set the standards and the norms, obviously within the confines of the law, but you get to decide what does flexible mean in your business, and it doesn't have to be what the big corporations are doing. The big corporations are living a totally different existence. They have all sorts of support people. If someone takes a day off, there's someone else to do that work. If someone has to go on leave, there's someone else who can backfill in a big company. In a small company, you don't have that luxury, but you have the luxury of building the organization you want, of finding team members who are excited about the way you have your organization structured, your culture, your values and norms. And I hear this a lot where they're like, no, but people don't want to work for me because I don't pay as much. And I was like, that's not, I mean, you have to pay fairly, but
Right.
that's not the reason. Like, you can find people, not everybody wants to go work for an Amazon or a big, entity. It's people want different things out of their work lives, whether it's the balance where they only have to work 40 to 45 hours a week, or whether it's the flexibility to work from home, or it's the flexibility to work from 8 o'clock to midnight because that's after their kid goes to bed and they know they get to spend the most time with their kid. Like, there are people out there who want to work for organizations based on different factors. It's about building the business you want, that you want to work at, and finding people who are excited about that. And that's where I think a lot of business owners miss the mark, is that they don't have to do it the way everyone else is doing it. They get to build the culture, the team, the structures that work for them, and then find people who are as excited about it as they are when they build their team.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I talk about that all the time. We have to be paying a fair wage for the work that we're expecting this person to do. But there are so many people who want to work for small businesses because they want to work for small businesses. They don't want to be in that corporate hustle and culture and everything. And there's so many people that just value what the small business can bring to them and everything and what they get to be involved in and stuff. But I want to go back to like something else that you were saying.
Mhm.
And that reminded me, I was like, yep, I've been guilty of this. And this is the thing of like not taking time off. So kind of that hustle. That hustle. I
Mhm.
can't take time off. I can't take time off. And I know I am super guilty about bringing my laptop when I go anywhere and just being like, I can't take the time off. And it's actually one of those things like I've been really challenging myself with. It's like, why don't I get a vacation? And why does my vacation only have to be like a long weekend? Because I was like,
Mhm.
maybe I'll stop work halfway through Friday and then I'll take Friday afternoon and Monday off. But I'll probably still check email to make sure there's nothing going on. And it's like, why can't I take time off? Like, why don't I allow myself to do that more? And I'm going on a cruise later this year, and I'm just like, part of me is like, well, I guess I can pay for the internet plan to make sure I have email and stuff on the boat. And I'm like, why am I already planning on working on my vacation? Like, stop it, Jamie. Stop it. Get out of this mindset.
And you're not going to want to work on a cruise because there's 5 gazillion things that are more interesting than checking your email.
Right.
I actually have a client who's headed on a cruise, and we discussed the laptop thing, and we agreed that she could check in to run payroll. That she was the only one in the company who could run payroll, and it happened to be falling on the date that payroll needed submitted. So she would take the 10 minutes to log into payroll, and after that, she was not doing anything else. And it's true. We have it in our head of like, oh no, if I don't get to that email right away, I'm going to lose a whole big deal. If I don't respond to my clients, in my experience, if you let your clients know, I'm taking a week off, let me know what you need in advance, or let's schedule stuff for when I get back. Most of them are super stoked about the fact that you're taking some time off. And they are not judgmental. They are not ticked off that that 1 week no progress is going to get made. Oftentimes, I work to set up homework for my clients. The week I'm off, why don't you work on X, Y, and Z, and then we can reconvene. It doesn't always get done, but we try.
Yeah.
It is. We've got it in our head that we are the most important person on the planet, and we're not.
Right.
Like, I mean, even we talk about like firefighters, first responders. They got to be present. They are saving lives, but they also take vacations, and they know they need to take vacations because they need to regroup in order to be able to go run into a burning building. And we as business owners need vacation in order to have the energy and stamina to deal with all the challenges of running a business. And it's about looking at what actually has to happen during the time that you're away. And in some cases, it's nothing. Put an out of office that says, I'm enjoying some time away. People will see it or they won't, and they'll get back to you. We're talking about 5 business days, maybe 10 if you're getting wild and taking a 2 week vacation. But usually by the time you could take a 2 week vacation, you have other people who can respond to the sales emails type of things. But there is not much that's going to happen in that 5 day span that justifies you having to turn your brain on to work every day while on vacation. And if you're on a cruise, you're paying extra for that because of the internet access. And like, I love to go out backpacking. You can't find me. There's just
Yep.
no way. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to move forward. And I do like it's a thing I help my clients with is they come and I want to take a vacation. All right, let's see what needs to happen. What process needs to be put in place or what structures do we need to create so that you can step away for a week without panicking. And, because on paper it's usually really obvious like what needs to happen, but it's that like mental block that we've put in place that like, I can't walk away or I'm going to lose a whole bunch of money. You've already committed to losing money. You're not delivering services for a week.
Mhm.
You're not going to lose business because you took care of yourself. And
Right.
there's just no
Well,
no way you're going to have time on a cruise.
Well, I think it's also one of those things, Laura, like we could potentially lose business because there's people, depending on what type of business you have, and I'm getting to a point with this, not just like
That's
go work on your vacation, because that is not the point I'm getting to. And that's the point I got to keep reminding myself, don't work on your vacation. But you could end up losing business because depending on what type of business you have, as you said, like you're not servicing people during those hours. So if you get paid by the hour, things like that, that work's not getting done. Client work's not getting moved forward. So that work gets pushed to the next week. If you're in the type of business where things need to get scheduled and nothing's getting scheduled, so they're going elsewhere for their business, you could potentially be losing business. But I think that's one of those things you have to ask yourself, why am I the only person in my business who's doing this?
mm-hmm.
Why do I not have someone who can help schedule meetings when I'm out of the office? Why do I not have someone that can be doing for a project, maybe the more basic things on a project? So I just have to focus on the high level stuff that actually needs my time and attention, but the rest of the stuff's getting done on that week. If depending on the type of business that you run, why can't someone be servicing clients like during that week where maybe you do lose a little bit of revenue because you physically can't be there, but your revenue is not going down to none because there's no billable hours that week. And so I think it's like one of those things to challenge yourself is, why are you the only person doing this? Not, well, I can't do it, so it doesn't get done.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think that's where it comes down to, as a business owner, you don't have to do it all. And it is free. And obviously when you get started, there is, you can't pay for people to do a ton of things, but although I did hear one of your podcasts has a bartering service. I
Yes.
forget what the woman's name is, but that's a super cool way to get some of this stuff going. But when you get to that point where you can't do it all, and you can't do it all, it's about finding the people for your team. And sometimes that's hiring somebody, sometimes that's using an outsourced service. It's not always like I must have a full-time employee, but I look at anyone who is either employed by me or I outsource to as my team because they're helping this business run. And I think that's a key piece of this is as the owner, really understanding what is the highest and best use of your time. And sometimes that is delivery, and sometimes it's having someone else be able to do elements of service delivery. But it's all the other stuff that goes into running a business that is probably not the highest and best use of your time. To your point, scheduling, you know, having someone else be able to follow up with those emails and be like, we've got a slot for next week when she's back from vacation, and it's boom, it's right there. I agree with you. It is really about figuring out what don't you need to do and who on your team should be doing it because they have capacity or better strengths in it or that they've been hired specifically to do. Uh, I think that's absolutely critical. And as your business grows, it's rebalancing it because it's going to change all the time. As your business grows,
Exactly.
you add more people, you as the owner are spending more time managing people, and it just cascades, but it's not a one and done activity of what can I offload? It's what can I offload now? How do I help those people grow and develop? And then they get to take on new, because to your point, people want to work at small businesses because they get to take on new challenges. They're not stuck in a very narrow job description. And how can you give those people those opportunities? And then your role changes and then you reevaluate down the road what else needs to come off. Things are growing. I need more time for delivery, or I need more time to actually think about my business. I think there's a ton of opportunity to sit back and envision the way you want your organization to be and figure out who could take on what, and who isn't necessarily the name of a specific person. It's a role or a service that can take on different pieces of it to alleviate you from constantly thinking about your business.
Yeah. And I think goes into it as like, it's not just when you're going to be out of the office, it's that whole thing of like leveling up. It's, you know, a few years ago, I had an assistant on my team whose job mainly was because I do a lot of full service recruiting, review resumes and schedule the interviews. So I could just show up and do the interview. I didn't have to do any of that other work. And she was fantastic at it. And it made me think about, there was this vacation. Gosh, I was back in summer of 2021. And I remember sitting in my car as my family went into amusement park and working. And I hate it. I hate going back to that memory. Now, the thing is, I remind myself, because that's the first thing my mind goes to. I was like, yeah, I remember having to miss out on a few hours at amusement park because I was working in my car and I hated that. But I remind myself that that happens because we adjusted. We weren't planning on going to that amusement park. We were supposed to be someplace else like 2 days beforehand, and we ended up canceling that part of our plan and deciding let's go to Cedar Point in Ohio instead. And we did 2 days there, but in order to do 2 days there, we had to extend our trip by a day. And I was just like, oh, wait, I was working that day because I was originally supposed to be working that day. That wasn't supposed to be my vacation. And I had some things that I was just like, I need to get this done for a client because they were doing things that day. And that was part of my deliverable for them. But I remember the rest of that vacation. The rest of that vacation, it was a 2.5 week vacation, and I didn't take a full 2.5 weeks off. I was not in a place in my business where I could do that. I had an assistant that was working for me 10 hours a week. That was
Mhm.
it. But I was able to take a lot of days off and remove myself from a lot of things because she was doing so much behind the scenes for me that all I had to do was show up and do the things that actually needed my attention. So if I was like, I'm going to work Tuesday morning for 4 hours, those 4 hours were focused on the things that absolutely needed my attention. She was focusing on everything else that
Mhm.
week. Thursday, same thing. I'm going to work all day on Thursday. Okay, all day on Thursday. Seeing I do full service recruiting, back to back to back interviews. I know when I show up and sit down on my computer on Thursday morning, all those interviews are scheduled. I didn't have to do a thing to schedule those interviews. So it was like being able to balance that and saying, okay, what do I actually need to do while I'm on vacation, and what can my team member do? So if I do work one day in the middle of a vacation, it's only the stuff that needs to be done. It's only the stuff that needs my attention.
It's true. And it's brilliant structured. So Cedar Point is brilliant as well. Love that place. But I think it
Hmm.
also feeds into some of the opportunity as the owner to explore the world around us. Whether you want to live a nomadic lifestyle or it's simply my kids want to spend the summer in Ohio with their grandparents, we can do that. We can fly up there for 2 months and the grandparents can be mostly in charge and I can work from there. But at the same time, if they're like, hey, we're going to go to the pool this afternoon, you know that in the morning you have to be super focused and you've got someone else who's doing a lot of the behind the scenes so that you can spend the time on what needs to matter. And I'm not one of these like, oh, only work 4 hours a week. That's what you're striving towards. I there's people out there that are like, you can make 25,000 a week by only working 2 hours a day. That's not my approach. I love to work. I would work more if I could. Children have created boundaries for me. And so, but it is one of those, but there's times where you want to go do something. Yesterday, I cut out early and went bowling with my child. The whole family went bowling. And it was nice to know that at 3:30 I could say, "I'm done. I'm going to go bowling," because there's nobody looking over my shoulder. And I got all the deliverables done because I knew I only had until 3:30. And so I think that's where putting in the structures, putting in some process and having team members in a lane that they're strong at gives you the flexibility to build the business you want to build and create the success that you're working towards instead of feel like you're on a hamster wheel um, of just kind of grinding it out because you're the business owner and you have to do it all. That's not how it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it brings us to that thing of like, are you always going to be working in your business, or do you really elevate yourself to work on your business? Those things that are working on your business, they sometimes don't have as stricted deadlines and things. Like there are a lot of more of those self-imposed deadlines, and you can figure it out because you have other people that are doing a lot of the client deliverables, the client works,
Mm-hmm.
helping to serve the clients, helping to make the products, and you
Yep.
get to do that higher level stuff, which if that's our goal, we need to start putting ourselves in positions where we can actually achieve that goal.
Exactly. I always like to say if you're trying to build an empire, you've got to know what the steps are to get to that and what does that look like and who are the people that are going to help you get there, whether it's to your point, other people delivering services or other people on the operations side, other people doing sales. You figure that out. What do you need to offload from yourself and then build the business through that? It doesn't have to all be on your shoulders.
Yeah. So, a question for you. Okay, so we're starting to offload these things. We're starting to say, okay, I'm going to trust someone. How do we hold them accountable?
Oh, you actually have to talk to them. And this is where I think a lot of people go wrong. And there's plenty of people out there that are really good at like talking about accountability. But for me, a big piece is you set clear expectations, typically documented. A job description is a good starting point because it lists out exactly what needs to be done. And then you meet with them regularly, find out how things are going, what challenges they're having, how you can help them, and you hold them to account for what they've been set out to do. And sometimes that's really obvious, like the books need to be closed by this date, the books weren't closed. We have a problem. What's preventing you? How can we work through this? And if you find that every month they can't get the books closed and they don't have a good excuse, then you may need to find somebody different to be closing your books. You're holding them accountable to the expectations you set. And I think that's the key is you've got to set the expectations. We're going to close the books by the 8th of the month, or we're going to have a social media post every day. And you're responsible for finding the content. You're responsible for getting it scheduled. We're not seeing posts every Tuesday. What's going wrong? So it's having that conversation. And for some, it's it doesn't feel good because it feels very tension filled to be asking the question of what's the problem? You're not doing something, why not? But you have to be comfortable with that, knowing that you're setting them up for success. They know exactly what they need to do. If they can't do it, then we need to find somebody else who can. And so I think that is the big piece is you actually have to be engaged with the employee, with the service based upon the expectations that have been set. You cannot, it's not a set it and forget it kind of situation where I hired somebody who's a social media person and they're going to go do it. It's your business. You've got to explain to them what the expectations are around type of content or frequency of posting or color schemes, that they need to be using. If you don't, you're not going to get the outcome that you're envisioning when you hire this person. So you have to actually talk to them.
Right? Oh, yes, I fully agree. It's one of the things I talk about a lot. It's like you have to set the expectations. We can't just assume our employees are mind readers or know what to do because their last company might have done things completely differently. So if you don't set the expectation of what it means to do it right here, they're going to go off their past experience. And then sometimes they're going to be disappointed. You're going to be like, why aren't they doing it right? But they think they're doing it right because you didn't set the expectation and you didn't correct them when they did it wrong the first time.
It's true. And there's many people who I'm hiring a self-starter. They're going to figure it out. Well, maybe they're going to figure out how to do the job, but they have to be given the guardrails of
Exactly.
what needs to happen. That these are our values. This is where we're headed with this business. This is what our vision is. And we need to build out this function within that framework. Like you have to give them uh, guardrails within to work. And then as they're building, you as the owner have to sit down and understand what they're building so you can redirect if necessary and say, that's not going to work. We're building a sales function. You're not going to be a sales manager. You're a sales person, right? Like, so it's recalibrating and recognizing that you're going to have to recalibrate, but you've actually have to again, set the guardrails of what are we building within so that they're not going completely rogue.
Yes, yes, that is so important. Because that's one of the things like I know with a lot of my clients are like, well, I don't know this yet. I haven't had this function inside my organization and I'm not the expert, which is why I'm bringing someone in because I realized it's never getting done when it's on my shoulder. So, but I really don't know the right processes. I don't know all this stuff. And I was like, well, you still need to train them on things. Like I always say, like part of onboarding and training is teaching people how to do what they already know how to do inside your organization. So what does this look like? What are your expectations? What is that check-in process and things like that? I wish I remembered who said this so I could give credit to where it's due, but it was years and years ago that I heard this. And unfortunately, I don't remember who said it, but they were talking about, they hired this team of experts. They fully loved their team because our team could do things really, really well. And so they pretty much gave them the reins. And then they now describe it was their Titanic team because their team thought they were doing well. And she just let them run with things. And by the time she realized that they were heading towards the iceberg, it was too late. And it wasn't necessarily that they did anything wrong. It was that they weren't doing things that really fit her business. They fit other businesses, but it wasn't her business. It wasn't right for what was needed to be done internally. So she said she ended up having to like scrap so much that they did to get them back on track because that's when she realized like you can hire these experts, but you still need that check-in process. You still need to say, okay, I want you to make these decisions, but we need a process to say, are these decisions in line with the overall strategy and overall goal? Because if they're not, why are we doing that? Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back in and focus on the right things.
No, totally right. And to your point, the overall strategy, that's where you have to spend the time figuring it out. And I'm not saying it's got to be a big strategic plan that's like 25 pages long and a binder with a fancy cover. It's your generalized plan for where is this business headed. And that way you can communicate this is where we're going and this is what needs to happen to get there. Your role in that is X, Y, and Z. And it requires the business owner to step outside of the day to day and think about where am I headed with this. And I've talked to many that are like, well, I don't really have a vision for this business. And I'm like, that's not true. You 100% have a vision for your business. You just haven't stopped to articulate it. It's a big piece of what I do with my action plans is, well, where are we headed? What's the objective? And now let's figure out what our next 3 or 6 months needs to look like to get us closer. And that's just pulling it out, a vision that already exists, but you've got to then be able to communicate it to your team so that they're working towards the same objective. Even if
Yes.
if it's 5, 10 years away of, total industry domination, they still need to know that's where you're headed is to
Yeah.
be the top player.
Yep. They definitely do. I think just from like that team member perspective, like one of the things that happened with me is when I was in corporate, I had this manager that was fantastic. I had a lot of authority and responsibility on my team, but we had this communication style where it was like, okay, good, we're going to go in, we're going to talk about things. And because she was in a higher level of position and involved in a lot of other conversations, she had so much information that I didn't have. And so I'd be like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'd like to implement this. I thought this through. And then she'd be like, oh, well, here's something that you might not know yet. Or have you thought about this? And it was just like, I just felt so supported of being able to create good ideas. I never felt stifled with when she would bring it up, it was like, oh, maybe you need to know this. Oh, we can't do that because this other project's going on with this other team. It was just like, oh, she's teaching me more so my ideas can be better. The company switched things around and she got pulled to focus on something else. So I got shifted to a new manager. When I was switched to that new manager, that manager's like, you know what you're doing, just go and do it. And I was just like, but where are those conversations to help me ensure that what I'm doing is correct for the organization? Where is that higher level support and that guidance that I need in order to make sure these are really good ideas? And I actually felt more stifled when I had that unlimited freedom because I was just like, but I might not be doing the right things. How do I know? How do I know? I don't have everything here that I need in order to be successful. And I was like, I can do something. And then 6 months later, after spending so much time, we have to scrap that idea. And so now I feel scared to start. And it was like, some people didn't quite understand that because they're like, but he's not telling you no. And I'm like, I know he's not telling me no, but he's not giving me what I need to be successful either. So I actually feel stifled with unlimited freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I could
So,
see where that would happen too. Because you also are conscientious enough that you don't want to work on something that then they're like, now you got to redo it because we actually need you to do this.
yeah.
You're like, I could have done that the first time if you told me.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's an interesting comparison story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also when we really know, once again, like where we are heading, it allows us to make the right decisions and stuff in our business. Because I remember a few years ago, I actually had to make the tough decision to stop taking on certain projects. And I knew it was going to temporarily impact my revenue.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, I sat down and finally said, why am I doing these types of projects? They have nothing to do with where I want to go with the organization, but the money's coming in from them and I'm saying yes to the money. And I need to stop saying yes to the money and I need to start saying yes to the right path that I want to be on. And it was a tough decision to have to make to get myself back on that right path and then communicate that to my team. Because one of the team members I had at that point in time, I had to tell her, yeah, this type of work that I hired you to do, it's going to drastically change. Like I'm not going to have enough work to continue giving you the hours that I've been giving you in this area because I'm simply not taking on that number of projects anymore in this area. So here's what needs to happen. But because I was really clear on this is why I'm making this change, this is the purpose. This is what we're aiming for. This is where we're hoping to shift. I was able to have that really good conversation with her, and we were able to make the best decision for what was going to happen with her position, where she felt kind of empowered in that conversation because it wasn't just like, yeah, I'm going to have to cut your hours. It was just like, here's what's all going on.
And those are the conversations that are tough to start and liberating to hold because you
Yes.
can have meaningful conversations and get ideas on where your business could go or where ways your business could improve. And this is the challenge a lot of business owners either they offload because they're so busy they don't have time and so they'll figure it out and they don't dedicate the time to onboard correctly or they don't dedicate the time to to meeting and checking in and holding them accountable to what needs to happen and having the collaborative conversations about where things are headed or talking to them in times of stress about ways things are going to change, not for the better for them. People are pretty reasonable and having those conversations, again, they're hard to start. But once you have them, you actually have so much more opportunity to grow your business. And it's those types of things that allow you to grow and flourish, whether it's having to cut out a kind of a service line and reduce somebody's hours because of it. But maybe they could go somewhere else uh, within your entity and do more that they can deliver more for you to grow. Like there's always so
Yeah.
much opportunity. And right now you really need to maximize the people's skills that you have to grow your business or to sustain your business, depending on kind of how things are falling. And it is hard to have those conversations, but you'd be amazed how reasonable people are when you say, look, business is slowing right now because of external factors or internal factors, and we need to make some changes. And people tend to be pretty reasonable when they know why it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Laura, we are coming to the end of our time, so we need to start wrapping up. How
Oh,
can
yes.
everyone get in touch with you?
I'm very easy to find, actually. Hello at elevation-business.com is the best email to get me at, or elevation-business.com is the website where you can sign up for my newsletter. You can take the 7-day on versus in your business challenge. You can email me directly through the website. If you have questions, if you want to talk further, I always love to talk to people about how to run their business. So those are the best and easiest ways to find me.
That's good. All right, Laura, and my final question that I love to ask all my guests, we've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us throughout our careers. Think of a leader or manager that stood out to you and share one thing about them.
Oh, one thing. So I had an amazing manager. I worked for a large entity in a small field office. And this manager we were all working under very crappy constraints as far as like the environmental factors of the office itself, like horrible desks, right? And bad computers. And then the pay wasn't great. She really pushed me to see what was possible and helped me. She advocated for me and she helped me learn how to advocate for myself and she also taught me the power of the word thank you. I guess it's 2 words. Thank you. Because when, I was struggling and not getting the results that they wanted, or was getting the results and not getting appreciated for the results that they were wanting, she would always thank me for everything that I did. And I tell you, that stuck with me because it really proved that you can have a great job that's not a great job if the people supporting you truly do appreciate what you do.
Yes, yes, that is great. And like I think it's one of the things sometimes we have to remember is some of our employees are in tough positions, just the nature of what they're doing. And to be able to say thank you and appreciate what's going well and what they're doing right goes a long ways.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I think it's underutilized. It's an
Yeah.
underutilized phrase.
Yeah. And it's also one of those things I feel like some people are like, why do I have to say thank you? Like it was their job to do it. And it's just like, you can still be polite. You can still, it's building that relationship. It's everything there. So still say it.
It's we spend all our time at our job, whether we own the business or whether we're an employee. And yes, you get compensated for the work that you do, but that doesn't mean that it's seen. It doesn't mean that it's valued. It just means you're being paid for the work that you're doing.
Right.
To be valued for the contributions you're making, it feeds people's souls and it makes them want to continue to come to work. And that's when they'll step up when times get challenging, like your employee did.
Yes, yes, definitely. Appreciate your employees, and it's going to make a big difference in the long run.
Yes,
Yep.
wholeheartedly.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Laura, for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Jamie. This has been fun.
Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line? Then let's talk and see how growing your team can help you master the art of hiring. Through bespoke hiring frameworks and comprehensive guidance, you will learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire and the skills needed to succeed. At Growing Your Team, women entrepreneurs and leaders work with us to help them expand their unique businesses by teaching them how to hire like a pro. Let's connect and see how we can help you. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, JAMIE, @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart, with jumpstart being all one word, and let's talk about how you can become a confident leader who hires right every single time.
When was the last time you felt in control of your business finances? Expenses tracked, invoices sent, taxes ready. That's where Found comes in. Found brings your banking, bookkeeping, invoicing, and taxes together in one simple app. Manage expenses, invoice clients, send payments, and prep for tax time right where you bank. Join the hundreds of thousands who have already streamlined their finances with Found. Open a Found account for free at found.com. That's FOUND.com. Found is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services provided by Lead Bank, member FDIC.